So let's first talk about symptomatic therapy. Well, I'm not going to teach you all about symptomatic therapy. I spend years teaching residents and fellows about all the different drugs that we've got, but this is a slide just to show you if this is the dopamine cell down in the substantia nigra, and it projects up to that top part that I showed you, the motor parts, and you can see the drugs that we have currently interact at a variety of different levels. The main one, the one you've probably all heard of, is levodopa or L-dopa. This is what's called a precursor. We give that to the body converts that to dopamine, DA, and that's the lost neurotransmitter that I've told you about. But we have a number of other treatments. Some of them block the metabolism of levodopa. Some of them change the effects of levodopa in the brain. Others replace levodopa or dopamine directly and act very much like dopamine, etc. So you can see on this slide many different ways that we have currently of treating patients with Parkinson's disease. But unfortunately, we recognize a number of problems with our treatment, and this is particularly the case with the best known and the most effective treatment we have, and that's levodopa. Levodopa remains the gold standard of treatment for Parkinson's, and when we first initiate it, this rather short-acting drug, if you measure it in the bloodstream, only lasts for maybe 120 minutes or something like that. But despite its rather short half-life in the blood, it lasts for a very long period of time in terms of the beneficial effects it provides. And our patients can take the drug 2 or 3 times a day, go all night long without taking, wake up and not miss the past dose, and so they can forget to take individual doses, so it can have very long duration of effect. However, as the disease progresses, and as patients have had the condition for prolonged periods of time, the duration of action of the drug becomes shorter, and as the patient reaches the peak action of the drug, one of the side effects becomes evident, and that's the dyskinesia, or abnormal involuntary movements, that some of you have probably seen Michael J. Fox experience when he discusses things to Congress, and when Congress foolishly blames him for not taking his medication. In fact, he had taken his medicine, and he had the excessive movements that were occurring at the peak action of the drug. So we have a drug that's very effective, but it's effective for shorter periods of time, and when it's most active, it can have some of these side effects that can sometimes compromise our patient's function. Let's just take a look at how effective this drug actually can be. This is a patient of mine that I took care of some time ago now.
Hey, I wonder if you could try and stand up for me, please.
He's got a resting tremor in his hands. He's very stooped. His face is quite masked. It is expressionless. He's unable to get out of his chair.
That's about it.
You're trying to stand up at this point?
Yes.
Okay. Turn around.
We've now helped him out of his chair, and you see he takes multiple steps to turn around.
Walk back to
He
your
shuffles
chair.
when he walks, and he's really quite concentrating hard on walking
Turn
there.
around.
Again, multiple steps and
Sit
trying
down.
to turn, and tends to flop back if he didn't control himself back into the chair. This is him with his
Could you
levodopa.
stand for me, please? And walk towards me. Turn.
And you
Walk
see the
back.
miracle of this treatment, and really why
Turn.
this was the Nobel
back.
Prize
That's it. That's great.
for science a few years ago with the discovery of dopamine in the brain and levodopa for Parkinson's disease. Now, as I've told you, if this is going to work then, come on back. Resume slideshow. Oh, no. This is not a picture you want to see, is it? Okay, we can go back. This is the problem with not running it on your own computer, but we can find it quickly. So now I'm going to show you the modern neurosurgical treatment for Parkinson's disease, which basically mimics the effect of levodopa in many patients. The advantage being, though, that you don't have some of the side effects that occur with the levodopa. And we typically reserve this form of surgical therapy for patients who are having all of the complications, the movement complications that we see in response to levodopa, so the involuntary movements and the variable response, the very short-lived response in many patients. So let's go back. I hope this doesn't happen with all of my videos. So this is subthalamic nucleus deep brain stimulation. So subthalamic nucleus deep brain stimulation is another symptomatic therapy that replicates, when it works and works well, the effects of levodopa in many patients. This is a young woman who's had subthalamic nucleus deep brain stimulation. So this is before the surgery. You see that she's very slow. She doesn't have a tremor, unlike the last man that I demonstrated. A lot of troubles turning around and walking. This is the same woman off medication and on deep brain stimulation. And you see the same very striking effect of the treatment as we saw with levodopa. So you say, well, why would we do this if we have levodopa? Because she was suffering from the complications of levodopa with the involuntary movements and the variability in her response. So she couldn't reliably stay in this state. She was a veterinary surgeon and had to give up her work and has since returned to operating. So our surgery until recently has included lesioning the brain. That means placing small selected holes or burning areas that are overactive, and this has largely been replaced by deep brain stimulation. We're now doing deep brain stimulation in a variety of other targets as well. These are more experimental targets. This is the subthalamic nucleus. These are the areas, interestingly, remember that slide I showed you with the dopamine projecting up? This is where dopamine projects. But that loss of dopamine affects a variety of different regions in the brain. These are the regions called the basal ganglia. And here downstream from the dopamine disturbance, we do the deep brain stimulation in the subthalamic nucleus. Now, one of the other things that we're very much involved in is drug development, and what we'd like to be able to do is establish novel ways of replacing that deficient dopamine and developing new drugs that approach alternative targets. There are many different transmitters in that complex region of the brain that I showed you, the basal ganglia. Dopamine is only one of them, and disturbances of dopamine affect multiple transmitters downstream. And we'd like to direct our novel treatments at the symptoms of Parkinson's, but also at the complications of levodopa. Now, this stems back to a very important discovery, and if you've not seen this discovery, I think it's worthwhile taking a little time, if we can get it to play.
And he could. As George Carrillo wrote, "I can't move right. I know what I want to do, it just won't come out right." By question and answer, a case history was built up. And in that history was a revealing statement. George Carrillo was a heroin addict. As would become clear, he was the victim of a bad batch of drug that had done irreparable damage to his brain. But his tragedy would open a new chapter in medical research. George Carrillo was just the first. His girlfriend Juanita, also a heroin user, was having even worse problems. To a neurologist, the symptoms were very familiar. They were textbook descriptions of a very common disease of the elderly. David and his brother had been found by their mother, lying frozen in their apartment. And there was another remarkable thing about them. They were both heroin addicts.
David, can you stand up? Let's try to stand up, okay? Okay. Can you stand up for me?
So bad was their condition that Langston decided to put them on the treatment given to sufferers of Parkinson's disease, the drug L-Dopa. Nobody was sure if it would work, but the effect was miraculous. They came back to life.
Can you hop on your right foot? On your left foot? Okay. Can you put your hands above your head?